So it should be good. Good.
Hello, testing.
We're testing.
Hello, testing.
Is it good? Is it going? Is it testing? Okay.
Hello. Okay, welcome to episode 179.
You and the sunglasses in a dark room.
Is that not part of the mystique of rock and roll?
Yeah, but you know what? The reason John had to wear it, it was because he was sensitive and he was blind.
But he just made that up to justify wearing sunglasses indoors.
Well, look what happened. It's
Howard Stern, Bono, they all do the same shit. But
I don't
nowadays
understand, but John was... they didn't need glasses. Howard Stern needed glasses. John needed glasses.
But I could say I needed glasses if...
Nah.
And they ask, why does he wear fucking glasses? I can have a story.
Yeah, but the thing is, John was blind. He couldn't see beyond this far, a foot away from his nose.
So it's episode 179 of the Michael Anthony Show. Thank you for tuning in. And today we're joined by May Pang and her friend who's watching us and who's making me feel intimidated.
Oh, God.
The sinking sand of despair, the smell of dread in the air. I'm head to toe in my own fear. I'm going to die, no need to cry.
May Pang, you used to obviously be heavily involved in the iconic 70s and 80s music scene and were a partner of the great and iconic John Lennon, who's somebody who we obviously talk about a lot on this show. You've lived in New York your entire life. Have you ever met Donald Trump in person?
I've seen him in person. I went to a birthday party for Howard Stern, and he was there. And Howard was funny. He goes, "Hey, May, have you met Donald Trump?" And I'm thinking, please don't. That was my thought process.
Do you think that he was really shot, or would you put it past him to have staged that in order to gain popularity?
What, for...
I mean, the guy was in WWE. The guy has absolutely no limits when it comes to inauthenticity. Is there a possibility that the shooting was a hoax?
You know what? I don't know. But I don't have any respect for Donald Trump as a candidate, because I've seen him. You know, maybe he's a nice person somewhere, but I don't like any of the I don't like the way he talks to people. I don't think it's a good idea as a politician, and you're representing a country. Then you talk to people like you talk down to them, or the things that you've heard, or more recently the when you hear the things where he said about the veterans of our country and the generals, and I'm thinking, I've never heard of such a thing. There's no respect for people, so I don't. It's about him. First off, anybody that goes up there is supposed to be representing the people, not just the president.
So you think that he's a complete narcissist, and he
Absolutely.
Do you think that John Lennon had narcissistic traits?
No, not really. No.
You think he was just a hurt individual who wanted to share his pain with the world, as opposed to someone who wanted to be in the center of the fishbowl?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the difference between an artist and a politician.
Yeah. Well, the artist in him was different, because I remember watching television, and they were doing a commercial, and they said, and there's going to be the legendary Eric Clapton appearing at Madison Square Garden. And I heard John go, "Oh my God, I couldn't deal with that." And I looked at him and I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Legendary?" He goes, "Not for me."
Why? He
didn't think he was legendary.
As a musician, or as an individual, or what?
I think at that point it was just talking about being the musician. That's how they, advertise Eric Clapton.
I watched your documentary. It was fascinating. You saw John Lennon one day wake up out of bed, watch something on TV, pick up a guitar, and make up a tune live.
So I've seen him do, write songs.
You saw genius actually occur within your eyesight.
Yes.
What's it like to see that?
It's amazing, because in my head I'm thinking, I can't do that. I can't all of a sudden turn around and write words and it becomes a song, or him doing. He hears something and he's just creating it right there. That's not in my psyche. That was in his. So he was obviously given the talent. I wasn't given that talent.
Where do you think that kind of talent comes from? Is it like a level of longing in childhood, or is it just a speed of mind, actual gift that occurs?
I think it was a gift that was occurring. Listen, we all have gifts. We just have to find it. What's good, what we can do. Not everybody's good to doing everything. I wouldn't be a good musician, but I'm good at something else, which is like putting people together. I'm good at networking and making things happen, which is not everybody's. Everybody has a gift for something. Everything is different. That's what makes the world go around,
So you grew up in New York,
yes.
And your old man did a runner, correct?
My father was around, and he was around. He just didn't care for me in the sense because I wasn't a boy, which is a very old-fashioned, thinking.
Were you an only child?
No, I had a sister. I have a sister, but she was in China, and so when my father was able to bring, he was known as a paper son back in those days, and that's when you try to come to America, which is the land of opportunity. You find somebody who has the idea that they are legal. So, I guess they sell their paper and says, "Oh, that's my son." So my father he's always known as a paper son, many of those. And he came to America. And then after the war, he was allowed to bring, World War II, he was allowed to bring his family. And my mother was back in China. And my father says, "Okay, I'm filing for you to come." And he says, "Okay." But he says, the paperwork says for a son, not a daughter. So now my mother has to, quote, adopt a boy. Yeah, so left my sister behind, and my mother pleaded with him, and he would not relent. So he came to America, and my sister was left behind, which was terrible.
Where's she now?
She lives in New York. My mother, once the immigration laws were changed during the Kennedy administration, my mother immediately filed to bring her over. And to tell you how much it affected this situation, I remember my father asking my mother, "Why are you putting so much effort and money to bring our daughter over?" And my mother looked at him and says, "Because she is our daughter." That's because it's a daughter. When I was born, and in the hospital, my mother went there. My father never went to the hospital to see her or anything. All the relatives and family, friends said, "Aren't you going to go see your wife?" And they said, "No, why? It's a girl."
So what was your childhood like in New York? What was a Tuesday when you were 8 years of age consisting of?
Going to Catholic school.
Nuns?
Nuns.
And were they punching you in the face for not believing
Well,
you?
they were a little on the strong arm side. I didn't get punched in the face, but you did get the rule on the hand. There was no such thing as premarital sex. You didn't have that. You're just going to school, and by the time
you're
done,
you're 13 or 14.
By that point, you feel like maybe I should enter the nunnery because I went to an all-girls school.
So how did you turn out to be a rock and roller coming
Well,
from such a strict
what it
background?
was when my mother and father would fight all the time. Television was new, and you had all of a sudden American Bandstand, which was like, "Oh, what's this?" So it hit me. I love music of all sorts, even in church when they sang in Latin. I loved it. There was something about it that hits the soul.
Yes.
So you hear the
There's a feeling of belonging of just that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
isn't there?
and it is at Christmas
Elongated
time.
vowels.
Yeah, at Christmas time, I love hearing all those songs sung in Latin as opposed to English.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they were good. It just hits. So I like that. And then I also like the idea when American Bandstand came out, I said, "What's all this stuff?" And you listen to the words, because they were in the 50s and 60s, they were a whole total different thing. And the words meant a lot to me. I know people who only like to hear the music, they didn't listen to the words. I listen to the words. You get Carole King, who writes all those beautiful songs that, Up on the Roof, and it relates. She came from New York, So she wrote, I go up on the roof and, and my cares go away. And then you feel, all right, this is it, So I got into that. And so it just stayed with me. By the time I got out of high school, I remember another friend of mine, and she wanted to become a nun too. 'Cause, they indoctrinate you. But the advice from one of the nuns was, go spend a year out and not think about anything, and go explore. So I spent a year going to a college for 1 year that was boys and girls. It's not just all girls now. And I said, whoa, hold on. I don't think I want to become a nun. And I think I just want to go out and have a real job and work and see if I can get into this business.
But the way you said there was no such thing as premarital sex in that era. So when do people lose their virginity in that era? Like, do you have sex in college with men, or is it just a bit of kissing and a bit of?
That was rare, even if I kissed anyone. Yeah.
So did you lose your virginity to John Lennon?
No, I didn't. Because John Lennon was later. I was 22 when I went to work. I decided I wanted to go and I didn't like school. Unfortunately, that was my side. I wasn't good at my academics, so I was average. And I said I hated school. I really want to be somewhere other than there. So I went to, back in those days, you can go to an agency, and I said, well, I could be a receptionist or something. And I went out there, and they said, well, there's a job opening for a receptionist. I could answer a phone. I said, I could do that. So it just happened to be in a building, and I knew I wasn't going to get the job. You go in for the interview, and you go, this is not going to happen here. It was a Japanese bicycle company. And I came back, and I said, that ain't going to be. My girlfriend was waiting for me downstairs. She says, how was it? I said, nah, not good. She said, but you know what's in this building? And she says, I said, what? She goes, Apple Records. And I look, and I see the names, and I said, and she goes, I said, that's great. And she goes, where are you going? I said, I'm going to go and ask for a job. And she goes, you're crazy. I said, what does it matter? If they say no, I'm no worse off than where I am now. I'm going to take every opportunity. And I didn't have the fear then. I have more fear now about if someone told me to go and get a job. I said, I don't know. It's over time, as you get older, you just all of a sudden start thinking too much. Then I didn't think
because the brain's been around for too long.
Yes, exactly.
Because the fact that we're dying anyway, you should be walking out in the street naked every single fucking day in a way. No, that's insanity. But what I'm saying is you should always have the audacity and the courage to follow your heart.
I do, but on other things that I wouldn't have done before. For
instance,
do
you give more of a shit or less of a shit with age about this?
I don't really care.
About anything?
About anything.
What about an online troll? Made Pangs lying about documentary, this kind of shit.
Oh, yeah. I've seen it.
You don't lose a wink.
No. Because you know what? Why should it affect me? If that's what they want to think, that's fine. Somebody said to me when they talk to me and they go, I don't hear the anger that you should be, from all of this. And I said, what good is it going to do me?
But what anger should you have?
They thought that I should be more what had happened to me with John and Yoko and all that. Even Yoko, I said, but why should I? I said, it won't do me any good. The thing is, I always tell people, I said, listen, what good is it? It won't affect them. It's only going to affect me.
Is Yoko a nice person? If you met her for a coffee, is she fun? Is she interesting?
I think if you met her for a coffee, you might find her. I wouldn't call her. It's not fun. I think it would be interesting, but not fun.
Good artist, or
it depends. That's a defining.
But according to your perception of art, you rate her work.
Her work is different. It's avant-garde that I didn't really understand. So
did Lennon love her work?
Parts of it. He found it. I think he found it fascinating. He was in that world. He loved anything different. That's really what it came down to.
Did you ever have any secret pieces of work, paintings, little verses you would have written of poetry or tunes that Lennon kind of encouraged out of you? And
he used to encourage
pillow
me.
talk.
No.
And then you just said, no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, there's a lot of those little things around. Yes.
What's pillow talk like with you? I'd say that's the most interesting part. The part where you're just lying staring at the stars, where the guy's just giving his opinion on the world.
Yeah, and that remains with me.
And that's beautiful. When John Lennon got shot, do you think there was a part of him that knew, possibly due to the way he lived his life, he was flying too close to the sun and something crazy was going to happen to him in terms of how he met his maker?
See, we never had that problem when we lived together because, we had a doorman that his name was Jimmy. He was so funny. He was an older gentleman. I mean, you could have just blew the wind and he would have just fallen over. John loved him because he was Irish and
salt of the earth.
Yeah, salt of the earth, and he loved it. And so where we lived, it was just great. But we didn't have the Dakota is a little different. It's really more of a guarded place, and so I found it just a little harder to break in. So I was kind of sad from all that guarding, and this is what happened.
But the act that did it as well, do you know what I mean? It was such like a...
The guy was mental.
He didn't even know, he wasn't even that hateful. There was people who wanted John Lennon dead more than that guy did in a weird way. He was just a confused individual who pulled the trigger.
He thought he was John Lennon, and that's why I say he was mental. And I read somewhere where his wife, who's Japanese...
Fascinating.
Fascinating, right? That's why he thought he was John Lennon. And because the wife said, "Oh, I know that if you met him, you would find him fascinating and you would like him." I'm reading this and thinking, no way. There's no way that this person can even say that to anybody right now, to say, "Oh, you would like Mark," and no.
In the late days when you and John Lennon end and he goes back, the dental appointment and all that stuff, the listeners can find that in the documentary. In the late days, were you and John was he pretending it never happened, or was he just kind of assuming you understood, this is my new life, and with Yoko, peace and love?
No, he was trying to figure out some other things. No. He was trying to figure some other things, and I just sort of said, "Are you okay?" I was more concerned with him as a person. I wasn't looking beyond where we were. I was his sounding board. One thing about John was that if you were no longer his friend or you were out of his good graces, didn't matter who, you didn't hear from him. He used to seek me out from all, and I just said,
that personality trait where people cut people fully out of their life, the way you've just described, is that immaturity, or is that someone who just wants to maximize their own experience of this kind of existence?
I think in his case it was more immaturity. He was just trying to figure out what was happening. He wasn't happy, even though, I'm happy. He wasn't happy, I can tell, because there's certain characteristics of somebody that Why is he seeking me out? There's a million other people he can go and see, not me. And if you're so happy, then why are you hanging out, calling me that I haven't seen you. Call me from Cape Town, South Africa. That was my last phone conversation in 1980. The year
that he got shot.
Yeah. He called me up and I said, "John, where are you calling me from?" He goes, "Cape Town." And I went, "South Africa?" He goes, "Yeah, it's one of those things where Yoko just sent me on those East meets West trip. You could hear it in his voice. She sent me off again, And I said, "Are you okay?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You have time to talk?" We were on the phone for a couple of hours. So is that a person like, he just wanted to hear. He goes, "Have you seen so-and-so? Have you, we were just giving a list down of all our friends." And I said, so, I just let him talk. I just wanted to hear what he was up to.
Was there a level of self-hatred there that stemmed from youth that he could never accept that he was good enough, so kind of constantly had to have an abusive female figure due to the fact that he always longed for his mother who departed?
Who knows? I didn't go that far into it because, you know what? My time with him was more dealing with him on a day-to-day, and we didn't have that.
You never went deep into what's wrong with you, man?
No, because we didn't have that. Our relationship... What it was is a lot of people, what you saw the movie, Yoko called us every day. So I'm putting out fires on a daily basis on a different level.
But at what point does it switch from you working for the couple to you kind of going, "Here, Yoko, just kind of fuck off. Me and John are a couple now"?
Well, the whole thing is that...
Why was Yoko constantly the puppeteer of the arrangement?
She was a puppeteer, but the thing in the beginning, she was trying to maneuver it. I said no. And even John said, "What are you doing?" Because I even asked him about that. I said, "Where are we going here?" And he goes, "You know what? She's pushing. Okay, now it was pushing weeks. And so he goes, she doesn't want me? That's fine. All right, I'm going to go for it. So that's when he goes, I said, are you sure you want to be with me or go out with somebody else? You don't have to be with me. He goes, no. He goes, I didn't realize, and I should have seen it, but I didn't. We always had a good rapport when we were working. Nothing overly, but like we would sit down, we talk about music. We bonded over a lot on music. And, we would always, I never even thought he noticed me. Never mind anything else, because you worked, there was not just me, there were other people. So it was just a surprise that he even noticed who I was sitting there, except that person that works for you,
Yeah.
Yeah, Meg, go get me the guitar or get me a cup of coffee or whatever else. It's a very interesting time.
Do you fear death?
I think we all fear death. Some people don't. There's not many, but everybody I know, they don't want to go.
But you would have known, obviously, so many people who've died now at this point. Like, even myself, I'm younger. Yeah, I wouldn't say I fear it, but sometimes you walk around and you go, wait a second, what the fuck is going on here?
Well, it's terrible when you all of a sudden read, this is what I've noticed in recent times. I'm reading about all these actors, singers, songwriters, whatever. And they're dying and they're younger than me. That sort of made me sit upright, And also, like, sometimes when my as I'm getting older, my knee goes out, and I go, and I said, we start talking with friends and they go, oh yeah, I have this ailment too. And I go, oh no, I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
But it does happen. But I don't want to think about it. So I put that on the back burner.
At what age do you find the identity is stable, and that's the one you ride the waves of life, that surfboard with?
What stage? I don't. And what age?
Mid-30s, your personality's decided, and that's what gets you through to.
Oh yeah, the 30s, and then when I had kids, then it defines you then as well. You got to all of a sudden say, okay, I got to deal with the next 18 to 21 years of them going to school, taking them here, doing so. Then I'm all of a sudden, I'm in my 50s. You go, what just happened? So I am now having, in a sense, a new lease on life. In a sense, I appreciate everything that's going on around me. I appreciate my friends. I enjoy my time with my friends, especially because I think it's worth. Everybody's worth it, and the people. And I always tell anyone that's close, I said, if you don't like somebody or you don't have to take it from anyone, but if you tell somebody you are it and that's it and you want to cut them off, be sure when you say it, that's final. But
if you get a negative thought, you wash it out within 5 to 10 seconds.
Yeah, you have to, because the fact is it could eat you up. Who wants to be I don't want to be there. There's so much to do that.
What's the technique for washing that thought off?
I keep moving.
Let's say you're walking down the street, you get a buzz on your phone, and it's a negative article about your documentary. May Pang selling Lennon's story again. How do you cut the time down of self-criticism?
I think about it, and I said, that's one out of how many? And if I tell it to another friend, they will say, yeah, but 99% of it has been positive. Yeah. So look at it that way. Because we do dwell. That's a natural human nature for us. When you do 100 articles come in, one article gives you a negative. Doesn't matter who it is. Guess what we dwell on? That one article. Meanwhile, the 99 are fantastic, but you don't see it. You only dwell on
Have you ever been seriously betrayed by another human?
Yes.
What happened?
And it was with a girlfriend, a friend of mine that we've known each other. And I helped her when she was really down and out, when she was going through like serious drinking problems. And then finally she straightened herself out, thank God. And then she went, I didn't know she fell off the wagon. And I always saw that negative side. And I said, listen, we were working on some stuff together on my jewelry and things. And I said to her,
do you have a jewelry line?
May Pang jewelry, yeah. It's a feng shui collection.
Is it good stuff?
It's good stuff.
Any child labor used?
No.
Go on, continue with the betrayal.
With the betrayal, I had to think about this.
What'd she do, though?
There was another person trying to what do you call it? Trying to destroy my reputation.
In what way?
Oh, telling lies about things and how she manipulated by saying certain things about me.
Regarding the Lennon relationship.
A Lennon relationship, even my personal relationship. So it was the whole thing. And we just all happened to be in the same place in the same time.
Yes.
It was actually on a cruise. And she goes, "What should I do?" On a cruise. So we all got
never a holiday that appealed to me.
Yeah. But it was
being
for
stuck
me,
on
it was
water on a boat.
But for
Why?
me, it was a job. I had an appearance.
Were you doing speaking on the cruises?
Yeah, only once. I only did it once. So I remember she goes, "Oh," and I knew this person was going to be on. She goes, "What should I do?" I said, "You could say hello. I'm not saying you have to be nasty. I never want anybody to be nasty to them. You could ignore them, or you just keep walking, or whatever. But you don't have to be nasty." And she said, "Okay," but apparently it was more than that. They bumped into each other, and it went from, "Oh, she dropped something and I helped her pick it up," to I went inside the cabin to talk to her, to I was only in there 10 minutes to 2 hours. So, that, and you started hearing that and you go, okay, now it's not whatever it is. In the end, I said, I can't have this because I gave you a lot of time to write whatever the problem was, and you didn't take it. And I said, I can't have this. I can't. If I can't trust you and we're working together, then that's it. And I literally I cut it off. I cut it off.
You know the way we all love the Beatles and have all kind of cried and met our first loves and made up with old friends over their music. Do you ever also sometimes think, though, marketing phenomenon?
Yes, but not,
As in they're legends and they're icons, but
right.
They're not Caesar. They're not Gandhi. They're not Mandela.
Right.
Lennon and McCartney nearly have that status. They're just underneath Gandhi and Mandela.
Right.
Do you kind of think stupidity? Sometimes. They were just dudes having a bit of fun on a guitar. They were great pop stars. They wrote great tunes. But Jesus Christ, they weren't Jesus.
They weren't Jesus, but whatever they wrote and whatever they believed at the time that put them where they are, we all followed them. They actually changed the generation to them. Our baby boomer generation. They, in that sense,
this microphone's probably here. The Beatles don't exist. This microphone doesn't exist.
That's right. And so did a lot of things in this city wouldn't have existed.
Oh no, it would just be a pit. Yeah.
Right. And they made it a different thing. And so you look at it, they created something, and it's a great give back to this town, especially. And I appreciate every person.
Do you like Liverpool as a town?
Oh, I love it. I really do.
As someone who's lived their whole life in New York.
Oh, yeah, but I've been coming here since the 80s.
What part of New York do you live in now?
I live in one of the boroughs called Queens. Well, what happened is I lived in Manhattan. Then I lived outside of Manhattan raising the kids. So I lived upstate New York, as it were, 40 miles away. It's like living on like London going to Henley, it's out there. So I came back. I was traveling into the city almost once or twice a week. I was like, I can't wait for the kids to grow up. So it happened about 8 years ago. I said, it's time to get rid of the house. I was free of everyone. Time to come back.
I spent a summer in Greenpoint.
Oh, yeah. That's not far. That's like 10 minutes by car. If you're,
Weird, but nice place.
Yeah, that's on the Brooklyn side.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right on the edge of Brooklyn and Queens.
And do you have a husband now?
No.
Do you just live on your own?
Yes.
Is it fun?
I get to do what I want.
Yeah,
once.
I'd say that's exactly how you should live at that age, though. That's always been my plan.
Yeah.
But it's not a plan you can announce when you're at this age.
Yeah.
I want to meet a woman.
Yeah.
I want to have a good 10 years, have 2 or 3 kids, and then be single.
Right. Oh, well. Listen, yes, but it's hard for me to be going say, hey, I want to date somebody, all right? Because, everybody sees it differently. John used to say to me, he goes, this is going to be tough for you. And I didn't
John Lennon's ex.
Yeah. And I didn't understand at the time because I was too young to really understand that line. I said, what do you mean? He goes, they're going to measure them. They're going to all try to measure themselves up to me.
This is going to be tough for you. They're all
because
going to measure themselves up to me.
Really.
That is an outrageous comment.
No, but he understood the reality to it. And you know what? He was right.
Yeah, no,
he gave
you're
me
right.
a fact. He wasn't saying, He goes, and the line was after he said that, he said, I wish they wouldn't do that, but I know that this is how they're going to see
Yeah,
it.
he was just overly intelligent, wasn't it?
He was
That's
very
kind of what
intelligent.
did him in the end.
Yeah, he was
Too smart to use the old backward mechanic cleaning the car with the towel. He was too smart for his own good, that kid.
but he understood the problem I was going to be going through.
I love John Lennon.
But that's what I'm saying. But he wasn't a narcissist in the sense where quote, Trump is a narcissist.
Yeah, but Trump's kind of a stupid narcissist,
Oh,
so
he's
it's more obvious.
I know everybody said, "Oh, John would have chosen him." I said, "What are you out of your mind?"
Who says that?
Oh, I've had people on the road when I've met them.
How often do you think about John?
I guess when
Do you wake up in the morning and go, I wonder how John's doing today?
No, it's only when
No, because
something.
I would. If I went out with John Lennon, Jesus, we all have intrusive thoughts. I can only imagine how hard they are controlled when you had 24-hour access to the god of rock and roll.
I know. I had 24-hour, 24/7, for a long time. But the thing is, it's not like that. It's only like if certain things, if I'm working on a project, then it's there. Or I'm doing an interview like I am now, then it comes to me. I'm in Liverpool. Yes, I think about
Do you still have this creative influence on your shoulder because he was so gifted as an artist? So if you're doing something artistic now, do you go, I wonder if John would say, take this risk or rein it in a bit? Do you know the way a lot of
Yes.
art and creativity...
Yeah, I do. Because
yeah.
he was the one that kept promoting me to do my photography. He was the one
Which is phenomenal, by the way.
Yeah, oh, thank you.
Instamatic Karma. What a book.
Thank you.
I remember I met a woman in Edinburgh when she was reading that in a park.
What'd you think then?
I just thought, what an interesting book. Well, she was explaining to me how interesting the shots were. What year was that, 20?
What, when it came out?
Yeah.
2008. 2008. And my first interview for that book was done by the New York Times in the art section. And Cynthia Lennon flew over and said, I want to see this book get the proper credit. And so I'm coming over, and we did the first interview together.
You were good mates with Cynthia, weren't you?
She had a raw deal on certain levels.
But did he not just kind of... She wanted the suburban kind of normal life and loved John for what he was, but he was never going to put on the slippers and smoke the pipe.
Yeah, you're right. And he was too creative. In lots of ways, his mind was... it's like nowadays would probably say ADHD.
No, that's all bullshit.
I know.
These modern over-diagnosis,
But can I tell you,
over-victimization of human beings who are just trying to
there
live.
are people that ADHD, because my son is one. He was diagnosed, and he went through a lot of... He couldn't understand why he couldn't focus on certain things. He went for a lot of tests. He went for a lot of different things. And he said,
the schooling system was broken to start off with, though. It doesn't suit every single person.
No, you're right about that
When
part.
I was a kid, there'd be certain guys who were writing off the blackboard, and there were certain people who were looking out the window, and the teacher would say, stop daydreaming. My response is, daydreaming is all I got. Imagine telling a human to stop daydreaming, stop imagining a better universe, shut the fuck up and follow our maths. And that's what I think ADHD is now. And I think Beatle is making us diagnose this shit.
But the only thing is that with my son, he felt a cloud. And when he took certain medication, it sort of lifted that cloud. He says, Mom, you don't understand. He goes, I, for the first time, could actually think. I don't have to think. I could say, I can now cross the street. If you ask me a yes or no question.
Are we supposed to drug humans?
Yeah, but the only thing was that I didn't want to. I stopped it at 14 because he needed to get through. When he ended up taking some of the medication for it, after he was definitely diagnosed, he went up 3 reading levels in 2 weeks. So there are different things. And now I took him off when he was 14, so I figured maybe he'll grow out of it. He was now 14. At 8, it was different. Now he's 14. And then it got worse again, and there's certain characteristics.
John Lennon would have been on ADHD medication if he was 14 now. And then
but whatever it is, he was always curious. He always wanted to learn. He wanted to know what the world was about. He wanted to, even if he makes the mistake, he wanted to keep learning and say, okay, I made the mistake here. Let me go back and see what I can do to make it better. And that's always been his motto. And when we sit around and, when our household, when I say that, it's only I'm talking about John and our relationship was totally different from the one he had.
And
with
major and minor.
Yeah, major and minor. You remembered our cats.
How did they die? How did the cats die in the end?
They were with me. It was age.
Did you get them put down?
No, I was away. And one of them died when I wasn't around.
Literal heart attack kind of situation.
Type of thing, yeah. I was away, so it was like my aunt they would come to my house, and my aunt found him, and they told me, and I was like, what?
They said minors after moving on.
Yeah, there was a lot of different things. So I said, so I didn't have any cats for a while. And then it was much later when my kids were around. We got a couple of cats, and we got a dog, rescue animals, because they were great. The oldest one was one cat called Roxy. She was great. She was like a dog. I would play fetch with one of those aluminum balls, throw it down the hall, and she went flying, reached it, put it in her mouth, brought it back at my feet, and then said, "Okay, some more." Yeah. She was great. So there were good times when the kittens came home. I mean, that turned John into a kid. He loved those kittens, and I looked at him when he got down on the ground. And he was trying to do something. I went in the other room for something, and I had never had animals before until then. And I looked at him. I said, "You look a little upset. What's wrong?" He goes, "They don't want to play with me." And I looked at him and I said, "John, we just got the animals in here. Let them get used to the apartment." He says, I know. I just want to play with them. He loved them a lot.
Can we do a bathroom break for 20 seconds, come back, and then finish off the show?
You got it.
I like your randomness. And my son has ADHD, and my daughter, so when she doesn't take her ADHD meds because they're at CVS and they won't send them to New York, she said, "Mom, I'm struggling. The cloud is
it's a cloud.
She's just there's a fog and she can't get organized. I have my job resumes to put in. I need my medicine,
She was just talking about the ADHD and she was talking about the different pills.
Two of my kids are on ADHD type, anxiety, depression, and ADHD.
But that's due to the fact that TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter exist.
I know. I didn't let them have any of that till they were 16.
I just think the modern world is so obsessed with trying to make us block out the thoughts that we're human. I just think we should all just accept what we are. We're creatures.
Yeah, but I think there are certain things that happen to us that we find. Yeah, she just mentioned all the characteristics that my son had the same problem, and there was a cloud. They can't make a simple yes or no.
My daughter's creative.
But she's also in a world in which Kim Kardashian has been in the White House on numerous occasions. We are in a shallow, inauthentic world that's trying to make us... Yeah, she's not that way, but that's the media landscape she's operating in.
But that's not even my son. He's already 35 years old, so it's not... It's that...
Why do you think that things like depression and suicide were so much less common 200 years ago?
We don't have the reports. It's not like it is now.
Your generation is a lot stronger than my generation, and because you all overcame the pain, you didn't want to put it onto your kids. So accidentally it got to a point where they were mollycoddled into not being allowed to feel their own pain and their own negative emotions. That's something that I find common now. If you look at a 16-year-old now, they've been raised not by what their mother or father told them. Don't put too much salt in the bolognese. Don't speak to the fucking postman like that. They're raised by the phone, and mom and dad get 10 minutes and the Kardashians get 5 hours every single night. So therefore, they just have an existential crisis of no meaning.
It's funny.
Are you on the air?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I have 2 17-year-old boys, twins.
Yeah.
And they weren't allowed phones till they were 16. They were kept pretty protected from all that. And screen time was limited. I controlled it from my phone, shut it off when I could. But the one child has no issues. The other twin, 2 boys, has ADHD and other behavioral stuff where he needed meds to treat his concentration. And the second he got his meds, his schoolwork went through the floor.
But I mean, schoolwork even in itself, what is it?
What do you mean, what is it? It's what we're learning. It depends on where you learn. I mean, I went to school and it's a different learning system now than it was back then. So I can't tell you. The Kardashians, I can't tell you how many people have asked me. None of my 2 kids, Kardashian, they wouldn't even dream of it. That's not even in their psyche. When you mention a Kardashian, they go, "What is it, Mom?" I said, "Oh God, okay." They know the name. They
But
don't
it's
know.
modern values that have caused this over-diagnosis.
Oh, yeah,
of
but I
all
get
of
what you're
these
saying.
issues.
No, I do get what you're
So,
saying.
so hold on. What is depression? Let's just think about it. Depression is a human being comes out in the umbilical cord. He has a smile on his face, and he leaves his mother's womb and exits her vagina. And he goes, "What is going on? This is crazy." Back in the day, we used to say, "You are one of Jesus' disciples. You will die and you will go to heaven." Now secularism dominates society, and we're kind of told there is no God, especially in Western society. So they've overcompensated by going, "I'll tell you what God will be: the acceptance of others via these apps." And suddenly when they don't have that acceptance, they feel like they're not good enough.
No,
I
get
don't
what you're
think
saying.
I don't think it's a chemical thing in your brain. I think we've set up a society now that encourages depression.
But I could see the difference in the society. You're right about the kids, but it wasn't in
But I think we all talk about skills, like someone can be skilled at music, sport, law, maths. Why can't we be skilled at feeling good? Like if someone's feeling a bit down, going, yeah, you have to learn the life skill of going, we're probably a random chemical, but you have to help others, have a smile on your face, show up and do shows, bring a friend along who was a great personality, and we all laugh. And if you start feeling sorry for yourself, it's a downward slope. The skill is live and die. Well done. You were taught it. And when the boys used to build the Empire State Building in the 1920s, they had that skill. Tony, I don't want to hear about your marital problems. We got a fucking empire to build right here.
No, you're right.
They were blocking out the same fears we have.
The
fear is that we're here for no point, mate. That's what all depression and all that shit is. It's a fear that all the joy and all the sadness doesn't have a meaning. And maybe it doesn't. But the generation that's coming behind us, for some reason we're not allowed to tell them that. So they can't make up for it with labour or taking the risk on knocking on the door of Apple Records. You know, if you wanted to work for one of the big record labels in the world now, you'd have to do 14 interviews. Email, PDF, Zoom, TikTok thing.
Let me tell you,
but your personality got you, and we've eliminated everything human out of society. So we have a generation of depressed kids who have ADHD.
Even my son says to me, "I hate this where I have to." When you apply for a job, when they said, "Oh, you apply, we can only do it by computer." I used to look at him and I go, "What do you mean you have to apply by computer? They don't see you?" They go, "No, not anymore." And which I think is stupid. And I also find things that when people said, "Well, do you have a PhD or any type of college?"
Yeah.
And I find that stupid too. I said, "Would you want somebody that's had 10 years of experience and don't have that college degree, or do you want someone with a college degree but with no experience?"
The word groupie is a disgrace. What we'll say is creative, entrepreneurial muse. They don't exist in modern rock. You're not allowed to be a rock star anymore, even. Like, who do you like modern music?
Some.
Like, who's the closest thing to John Lennon currently living? Did you like Liam?
It's okay. You know, I see that. I'll tell you who I do. I like Adele, female singer. You know, yeah, I like it. I like Ed Sheeran.
I mean, that's shit though. Lennon 1974 is laughing at Ed Sheeran.
Because you know why? Nah, he would have liked because
he would have liked Ed Sheeran. John Lennon would have liked Ed Sheeran.
Listen, I just told people that he also liked disco music. What does that tell you?
I just don't think he would have liked Ed Sheeran.
I think he would have.
No, but the lyrics are too inauthentic.
I disagree. I lived with the guy, so
you'd know more definitely as a co-inhabitant and a lover, but as a fan, you're crushing my dreams.
Why would
my favorite ever John Lennon tune is "Isolation"?
Yes. Now I'm not saying that he writes like John. John was writing.
John was telling you how he felt.
Yes.
John was going, "I am feeling fucked up, and as opposed to ADHD medication, I'm going to scream into the microphone saying, 'My mummy's dead,' and therefore you might understand me."
Right.
But it didn't always seem that John was even looking for sales. John just wanted to be heard. Ed Sheeran goes into a fucking studio and he goes, "What do I need to do? Oh, I'm going to build you a Lego house. I'm going to make some 14-year-olds make their parents buy tickets for my concerts." John Lennon wasn't ripping you off. He could have sold the Beatles shtick for years. But he moved to New York, he grew a beard, he went personal. He was authentic. Ed Sheeran's a fucking idiot.
I see you like him.
No, but you know what I mean? I think it's different.
You know, I like John Legend. I like all these other people. You know, I like different music.
The problem is society got absolutely toxic, and the people who represent Lennon now have no listeners. I'd attend a few of their gigs. There's people out there who are kind of Lennon-like, but they're just not that popular or not that rich because he set the bar and then it gets polluted like sport does, like politics does.
On that level, yeah, because he was unique. I've seen the side when he writes, it's like, oh my God. That's why I said when I tell people he liked disco, he loved the beat, he loved the feel.
Did you know David Bowie?
Yes. We're at a party in L.A., it just happened to be in L.A. Ringo came later. We're all sitting around. And we're at this party, and I'm talking to this woman, and I look up, and I see, down the hall, this guy's walking in our direction where I was standing, and I always grab John, by the hand or just tug his clothes, and he knows that I'm about to tell him something, and I just put my head down, and I just sort of whispered. I said, "Coming down the hall is David Bowie." Okay, so that he's aware of,
And he respected Bowie.
Well, he liked him, absolutely. So he turns around and comes over and he says hello to the woman that we were speaking to. And she goes, "Do you know May? Do you know John?" And he goes, "On Elton." And he goes, he says, "Oh." He goes, "Hello." And I laughed and I thought, okay. But the woman who introduced us was more important. It was Elizabeth Taylor.
Do you know Paul McCartney?
That guy, yes. When we were together and he would come over, they would just chit chat. It was funny because when we were in our new flat in New York, the doorbell rings and the buzzer comes on. And I said, "Who's ringing our buzzer at 7, 8 o'clock at night? We haven't told anybody we moved, so we didn't know why the buzzer was going off." And Jimmy, the doorman, says, "Some guy, Paul and Linda are down here." And I see John's face, and I said, "What is it?" And he goes, "It's Paul and Linda." I said, "So?" He goes, "What should we do?" I said, "What do you mean, what should we do?" "Send them up. They're your friends." He says, "Can you handle it?" I said, "There's nothing to handle. They're your friends." And they came up, and it was lovely, and that started the ball rolling. They just show up. We saw them quite often.
What was it like when you were living in the house in California?
Everybody has a different viewpoint of that. John and I, just so you know, for the record, John and I never lived, as you call lived. We didn't own anything. We house surf. Harry Nielsen rented that.
John F. Kennedy's former house.
For our project, because John thought, we'll keep all the musicians under one roof and get them all there on the same time. So, yes, so there we have Ringo's on one side, Keith Moon's on the other, Klaus Vormann, Harry, and Ringo's business manager. We were all living under the same roof, and then during the day you get everybody else come visiting. Mal Evans would come by to check in on the boys to be sure if there's anything they needed, and all that, and all the Jim Keltner, and it was quite the time for everybody to show up, and it was a nice house, and it was interesting.
And you personally never drank or did any drugs?
I hated it. I'm not a drinker. I will drink. I mean, I did. I'll drink a glass of champagne, as long as it was a mimosa, actually, a Bucks Fizz. I would.
Have you never been hungover or actually had a proper
once,
session?
I think once or twice in my life. I just don't like the taste. But I do drink a glass of wine now and then. So I mean, when I go to the doctor and they go, do you drink? And I say, would 20 glasses a year count?
But when you're at that level of consumption, what do you do? Just sit it out with the boys when they're in the house in LA?
Exactly. I'd rather go and...
Did you not think that they were becoming kind of more stupid as they got more out of it?
Well, John, that's the whole thing. So if they Harry was the biggest problem, as I would say, because Harry would love to go and have fun all the time. So it's talking to your point there. Have fun. but it was always detrimental to himself, and then it dragged everybody else. John, at one point when we were doing the album, there's one thing that we didn't do. We didn't drink during the sessions when it was, although you read about it, that one time was because it was a Phil Spector session. It was not the same as a John. If you go to any John session, there wasn't liquor or anything else. He would always ask everybody, I don't care what you do after the session, but not during. It's hard enough to, and he would say, it's hard enough to learn a new song. So whatever you want to do it after. And so we would all be there. I mean, it was chaotic in the sense Harry wanted to just have fun. But he also realized John was producing it, and he got a little nervous, and he kept ruining he loved to go out at night, but in the daytime, John would say, I want you to take care of your voice. So John sent him to an acupuncturist. So he'd go to the session, and then at night, he'd just go out and ruin it by taking drugs, going out. John finally said, I'm not going out and hanging out with you. I can't do this stuff.
What about mind games?
I was around when he was finishing up the Mind Games. Yes, I was there for that. He had come into my office. I was working on Yoko's album, and we were just finishing up her whole press thing.
Did John have a funeral?
I don't know. I don't believe so.
Would you have been invited to that?
No.
Did you kind of wish that there was a proper state funeral and he was walked down Liverpool to meet all the people on the street being proud of their hometown hero? Georgie Best, that is.
Yes. Soccer player.
Yeah, icon.
Yeah.
The fifth Beatle, many say.
Ah, interesting. I just don't know. I don't know I think if they could have had if there was a real lovely tribute. I don't know if this is the place he wanted to be buried or whatever, or because he was cremated. So I have no idea. Well, the acknowledgement came more from fans or just let's all gather. I think the family.
Were you in New York when it happened?
Yes.
Did you kind of go to a few of the vigils and sing?
I went to one sort of vigil, like a couple of days after it happened. And, people just wandering around. The city was absolutely dead quiet. It was the weirdest sound, no sound.
Were you getting hugs on the street by people?
They didn't know it was me.
But you were covered quite widely in the press at the time.
People don't. Are you kidding? They can't tell us apart at that time.
You and the level of subtle racism in society.
Let me tell you, I've been told this. I've been stopped by people who said, God, you remind me, you look like Yoko Ono.
Yeah, that's just disgraceful ignorance. But at the time,
I'm just saying,
when you were going out with John Lennon and then you broke up or whatever, were you walking down the street in 1977 and getting stopped?
No.
So you were just like Yoko light.
Yeah, people thought, you remind me of. I'm just saying.
Just a watered down version because, they would have already thought it was so weird that he was going out with an Asian woman that you were just the substitute. That's such a weird thing to think, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
but I don't even bother. I can't look at it and just say it's stupid. But you know what? That's the ignorance that it was. And to try to tell somebody, anything different is, they couldn't accept it.
Have you ever had a conversation with Yoko Ono since John died?
I ran into her purely by accident in Iceland, in Reykjavik.
Yeah, and just say, how you doing?
I said hello, and you could hear a pin drop in the restaurant because when they realized, the two of us are in the same restaurant, and she just sort of looked at me and she goes, thank you. And I said, okay. I did my best. I got up, said hello. I went back to my table to eat. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see her wandering again around the tables. And I said, she's looking for me. I could hear, I'm saying that to myself. She's looking for me. I know it. So all of a sudden I look and I see her standing off the side. And all of a sudden she's waving to me. And I said, and I look at her and I said, and she's like this. And I go, oh my God, I think it's me. And I turn around to look, because if maybe it's somebody else over me, right? It was me. So I said, and my girlfriend's looking at me. She goes, who are you waving to? I said, Yoko, because she came back. And she's going, how are you? She's mouthing this whole thing right there. And I'm like, okay. And she goes, what? And I said, yeah. I said, and I wouldn't get up again. I did my bit. I got up and said hello to her. Her reaction was very sort of cold. And I said, very respectful, but, cold. And I said, that's it. I did my bit. And now all of a sudden she was waving to me. How are you? Are you okay? And I'm thinking.
So did you get up or what?
No. I said, I'm eating. Now I knew what it was because all the press was there. It was I knew what it was about. She wasn't quite ready when we caught her off guard when I said hello. Now we're back and she goes, I got to rectify this.
Yes.
I'm not going to. So I said, I'm not going to play that game. I did my bit. I did go up. I did say hello. I asked how she was doing. She said, fine. I went back to my seat.
John left one weekend and never came back. That's kind of what happened there.
In a sense, yes, because he did not think that was going to happen, that he was not coming back.
But you were going out with John for 18 months straight.
Yeah.
And he said, Yoko wants to see me, essentially.
Yes,
Principal
but
Skinner stuff.
She called us every day, so it's not like she didn't know where we were.
But why weren't you going to him? This is fucking weird.
I said that to him. He said, because one part of John was, she was hounding him so much that I know this, that when he's hounding him so much, he just said, it's easier to just get it over with. Because he goes, I know a method to help you quit smoking. And this whole thing went on and on and on.
Did Yoko ruin the Beatles, do you think? Or is that just an old myth?
I think it's more of an old myth. I think I think for them,
artistic,
they were all going, right.
Yeah.
They were going in different directions.
Yeah.
And I think that she might have exacerbated a situation. That's
by
all.
showing up and refusing to get the fuck out of the studio.
Yeah,
Why
exactly.
are you here?
That's what I'm saying.
Why are you here?
So that's where I'm saying about the exacerbating a situation, right?
Did you ever think for a second, me and John Lennon, we're going to get married?
Well, when he comes home and I said, how was your meeting at the lawyer's office? And Yoko was there to tell him we're going to get a divorce. And she wanted to do it in front of lawyers so that, in case he went apeshit, that it would be, he'll go, that it would be okay. And he came in and he came in and he said, I said, how was the meeting? And he said, it went fine. I'm going to be a single man in 6 months. And I said, are you okay with that? He goes, yeah, I'm fine. And so this went on. And then she kept calling saying, I want a party, a divorce party, invite all these different people to it. And he's going, yeah, okay, fine. He's not paying attention. He says, okay, whenever, 6 months. All right, great. And then at one point, I guess she went too far. She wanted to invite Mick. And the list got along that he was busy trying to get the next album together to the point that he said, listen, I'm tired of this. Let's get the fucking divorce over with now. And then he hung up and he hung up on her. And then she realized he means it. We didn't hear from her for a little bit.
What do you think John Lennon would be if he had have lived? The way Paul McCartney's still doing the Glastonbury headlining, he has the hair plans in, he looks. What do you reckon John Lennon would have done because he was such a troublemaker and such a rebel?
But he would have still been making songs. He would love that, yeah.
Would he been on the stage at 80 like McCartney? Or would
No. There was a point when we went to see Elton perform, and then, he got up on stage the last time that he ever did his, and he goes, he got so excited to see Elton performing on stage. He goes, I want to get up on stage. Maybe I want to do a tour. He was just getting all that. And after about an hour, he went, nix that idea. This is too much because it's only going to be on me. Because at least with the boys, with the Beatles, it gets put out to Paul or to George, even Ringo.
Yeah.
So everybody shared. So him being the only one was just too much to bear. I think had he lived, he could have done what Ringo's doing, Ringo and his all-star band, and doing exactly the same thing.
Culturally, around 9/11 and all that, I can imagine Lennon been in the midst of that kind of narrative.
Definitely. This was his city. This was his,
Would he maybe just be kind of behind a microphone doing a podcast, find out the truth?
And that is too, because he would love to do that. Because he was always like, when the lawyer would come over, he would always say to him, do you think, do you think we could ever achieve world peace? He would always ask his lawyer. They loved to talk politics. And every morning, when he woke up, as he's sitting there with his cup of coffee, he would like to read, and in those days, 1 or 2 newspapers as opposed to like thousands at the
But
time.
a healthier way of consuming information.
Absolutely. Back then, it was like he sat with the New York Times and he would read it every morning and just read. He was a learned man. He loved reading. He was intelligent. He sat through all of that.
You never even got to like show up to Awake,
No, God, no.
even after having spent so much intimate time with him that goes on for
No,
years.
I called over, I said, please, I sent Yoko my regrets and condolences. Never heard back. Never.
So people still play games after someone's dead. Well, I'm from Ireland in terms of we over celebrate death. It's like we do a jig and a waking over there for 3 days before, drink Guinness, pour Guinness down the dead body. Try awaken the dead body. In many cases, may try and wake the bastard up. But what I'm saying is,
I've never gotten the closure.
yeah, why'd you accept it?
There was no way. She wasn't going to let me in the door.
Why didn't you just kind of say, fuck her?
You couldn't get in the door.
Did you ever say to John, as opposed to going, oh, is Yoko calling? Okay, maybe you have to go. Even though he loved you and you loved him. Did you ever go, Yoko's a cunt?
Didn't need to. I let him make that decision.
But the guy was manipulated.
You're right, but this was the thing. The more he stayed away, the more he started to see what was going on. That's why at one point, when he said, quick, I want the divorce, she realized he saw something that wasn't there before. So she was going to always constantly call in because she already had a way of saying, it's so hard. She had a way of saying, I'm the one that let you go out with John. And, and you look at it and you go, that's how you want to look at it. That's fine. But that's how it was constant. It was it's somebody that's constantly at your feet. She's going to follow you. It's like everybody said, oh, she didn't know that, you read stories. She didn't know that John was going to appear on the Elton John concert and Elton helped them get back together. That's not true. I'm the one who told her. So, she would call every day. Here was one. We were seeing, there was an event. It was Sgt. Pepper play. And she had called in the morning and she hung up. And I looked at John and said, what's going on? He goes, Yoko just called to tell me that she wasn't going to go to the show, to the event tonight because she was invited. I said, okay. I said, I have a feeling she's going to go. And he says, no, she told me this is how much, he was brainwashed in that sense.
Correct.
He said, yeah. And so I said, no, he's going to go. So in the movie, which you see, when we got there, she was already there. And everybody came running over and said, Yoko's here. And John sat there and he looked and he goes, and there's no seating around here, where we were. So I said, okay. And I'm listening and I'm going, and everybody's pressuring him because they feel, what should we do with her? And I'm sure she pressured it too to say, I'm here. I should be sitting next to him. So you know what? He looked around and he looked at the lawyer. His lawyer was there and he says, tell her she has to sit back there.
Yeah, but she should. You shouldn't be honored by that.
No.
Do you think it was a racial thing at the times that like John Lennon nearly we had Vietnam going on, and when you have that shit going on with the kind of rotten narrative politically that the Asian are scum, that by John Lennon going out with Yoko Ono, it was a big fuck off to the system. So you viewed her as an inspiration, being a minority, and that you were willing to accept being underneath her as long as you were still kicking it against the man.
No, not at all. You had to be there to realize the whole thing is that it's more complicated than telling you exactly what was happening. With so many, there were so many underlying things that were running that I'm trying to put out, as I would say, fires. And so in doing so, every day was something else going. Then we also had the Apple situation.
Was there a part of you that loved John because he was famous as well, though? Although Yoko was the worst example of that, and she was clearly in it for that.
Because I had worked with him for 3 years.
Then why would you accept that off a man? It's either me or her.
No, it's not. It was not as simple as all that. There were other elements that came out that had to be dealt with at each time because there was something else going on, and it was always something. So I was like, The thing I could do is as I said, I put out the fires as much. And one of the big things that I did manage to do was to make sure that Julian was taken care of, because he hadn't seen his son in 3 years. So that was an important thing for me. And he, at one point, this is how, brainwashed he was too. He said, he kept wanting, I said, what's wrong with you? He goes, oh, I wish Cynthia wasn't coming to take him. And I turned around and I looked at him. And I said, listen, you hadn't been the father that you should be. And so it's time that Cynthia, who raised him, so she has all the right to bring him. So get with the program. And I said, but you're not alone. I am going to be there to make sure things will work out fine. And in the end, they had a talk. They were fine. They got their closure. She got her closure. He got his closure with her. And every time he picked up the phone to speak now to Julian, and when Cynthia answered the phone, there wasn't that angst that was in his voice that was there before. So all of a sudden it was like, hey, Cyn, how are you? I'm just seeing so-and-so, send him my love. All of a sudden there was a connection again.
Where's the gain for you in that?
You know what? Maybe there isn't, but whatever it is, I get a chance right now and back in the States, I haven't done it in Europe, where I get a chance to show all those photos that you have seen only in a book form, but to see it in real life in a larger form. I bring it out, and I go out into and I go across the country, and I do these pop-ups. And I showed John that I knew. You're seeing him through my eyes the way I saw him. And a lot of the people, majority of the people, had never seen these photos. And I go out, and when they buy the print, these are limited prints, when they buy them, they get a chance to see John that they had never seen before. And they see another side of him. He's not a down and out whatever that, everybody thought he was. And it said, look at this. This goes over a period of our time together. And they bring him home, and they are so happy. I had somebody last night who said to me, I love the print. He goes, when people come over and they just go, oh my God, I've never seen John look like this. You know what? I get a chance to spread what he really was about, and with me, what that time period was that everybody has now taken to say, oh, he was nothing but a drunkard, and he wasn't.
Life between 1980 and 2000.
1980 and 2000. That's a good one. I got married, and I ended up with 2 kids. I married a record producer and musician, Tony Visconti. It's who I can communicate with. It's really.
Was that the same level of depth as it was with you and John?
No, there was definitely different. There was something. Each one was different. I treated any type of relationship, which was not many, differently. I've had guys actually tell other people, because they would say, oh, why don't you go out with my friend May? And they go, are you kidding? Do you know who she went out with? They go, yeah, what does that have to do with anything? And they said, I can't do it. And they've actually said it to my friends. So I've just resigned myself to.
So okay. Tony was brave to even go there.
Yeah, he was.
Am I wrong in saying, we'll use the audience for this, when I think of like an ex-girlfriend, I like to imagine they can never get over me.
No, you're not wrong. You're right.
But John Lennon's the love of your life.
So he sits here. Nothing.
Did Tony Visconti know that you didn't love him as much as you love John Lennon?
I don't know. He probably thought that.
I'd love that. I'd love to be John Lennon in that scenario.
Yeah.
Because all men do. We overcomplicate it. Men pretend that they're intellectual and complex animals. They're not. Women are much more complex, superior intellectually by far. Men are just competitive.
Yes.
Animals. And all they do is compare themselves to others. And I like to think that, yeah.
Which is true.
That's true.
Serious.
We're competitive idiots.
Me, once
again. And John Lennon was beating Visconti from the urn. John Lennon was there as dust. And he was still intimidating. He was still intimidating Tony Visconti.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
That's power. That's the power I want. I want to just be dust.
Oh my God.
Making you feel uncomfortable as you're cutting your lamb chop.
Oh jeez. Oh. There you go. That's a good way of. There we go. My whole life just set up right here. Oh my. Oh.
There's a degree of truth to that.
I can't wait to tell other friends about your perception of this. I love that. From the dusty spots. Oh my God, okay.
Mate, there's a degree of truth to that.
Yes. The dust is always there because he's still alive. He's in the world of singing. You turn around, there's songs by him. I can't stop those things that are being played.
It's John fucking Lennon.
Yeah.
Today, the hallway bathroom today. Who's on the wall? You two.
Yes. We were having to, as I had to use the loo, I went over we were right next door to the Hard Day's Night Hotel.
Yeah.
Because Shannon, the artist, was showing her new piece that it took a year and a half to create. So I was there for her because I truly believe, you support your friends no matter whatever they do, you support
But you
them.
like coming back to Liverpool because Liverpool is the place that goes Maypang fucking mega. She knew John.
I love coming here because of my friends. I have great friends. Frida Kelly, Vera and Gordon Brown that I would stay with. I have friends here.
There was a PM called Gordon Brown.
Oh yeah, there was. I didn't get into politics until now, thinking about what could be happening.
Do you like Kamala Harris?
Yes, I do. Kamala.
You like her because we need to like her because it's her or Trump? Or
No, I think she's really good. I liked her in the beginning. I said, a woman. She's smart. She's intelligent. It's time for a new thing. When you put the two together, you got to look at what she's come up with. Listen, no one's perfect, but I'm not willing to go backwards when they've already taken women's rights away. That's a big thing, but not for me. And we're not talking about abortion laws for me, but I'm thinking about my daughter or any other families or girlfriends and or mothers that have a problem with their, thinking of their lives.
Was John Lennon a homophobe?
No, not at all.
The odd comment saying, "He's a fucking faggot,"
Yeah, but it's the odd comment, but he's not. He was not. We had friends that were.
And I agree with that, but what do you make of the fact that the world in the last 20 years would use people like Lennon to overly display this kind of woke, liberal exaggeration, and the minute you say something out of turn in humour, you're now suddenly labelled as racist, homophobe. Would you agree that wokeism went too far? Original liberalism that you would have represented was betrayed, and that's the reason Trump even got into presidency in the fucking first place.
No, we went. It's either too far left or too far right. We're at the too far right now. It's time to come back to the middle.
What about the trans thing? What's your take on that shit? Let's say it's an H-roll.
We don't know what they are.
I think we've gone mental.
We've gone too far left and too far right. But the too far right has now put the women back to
Agreed. That's why I want Kamala to stabilise it. I'd love her to come in, but I don't want her to overdo the whole... And I don't think she will.
No, I think we are looking for as progressive, but we also don't want... we don't want both, either side.
Isn't it weird the way we can't get a US politician, although we talk about kind of democratic and right... There's no US politician that can call out Israel. That's just not an option.
Hard. And that was always, John was always concerned. I remember him asking his lawyer at the time, said, do you think that the Jews and the Palestinians could ever live together and be... And
evidently not.
And he said no. He said, and he would say, but why? And he was always curious about it. Now, not only do we have that, we've got Hamas. We've got everybody else in between. That's even worse than that. So now it's created to another level. And it is, and I really feel bad for the people in the middle.
So life, the next 20 years, what's your plan?
I don't know. I take each day as it comes. So far, I'm doing a road tour. I feel like one of those rock stars where you're on the road doing the pop up. I have a partner in this venture. We go from different cities, like we do 3 cities a month, and we're on the road for like 2 weeks, and we go to different cities with the exhibition. And in that exhibition, they get to come, and the experiences, they come and they can talk to me, and they could see John on the wall the way I saw him, so they get to see it.
And do they get to ask you questions?
Yes, and they do.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, I went to...
She bought. That's how we met.
Is that how you know each other?
Yes.
Yeah, the last couple of years, yeah. And I met her in Milwaukee because I missed the Chicago show, and she was on my radar. And the second I met her, I was like, oh my God, I love this. Told me all the pictures and her stories, and then we just stayed in touch and tried to see each other.
And are you guys staying in the same hotel, or what's going on?
Yeah. She's in on the same floor as Chris O'Dell, and I'm, in the end was too tired to. We
should have put her on air.
Yeah, Chris would have great stories, but she was tired. She says, "Would you be upset?" And I said, "No." And I understood it because she flew in from Tucson,
Arizona.
Yeah,
she's literally living up to the tune. Get back.
So yeah, Sheila's out there, and she's done a lot, and it would have been great. She's doing a documentary too. She has one out.
So your attitude was just self-reliant, feminism, live life. Any grandchildren?
No, I only have 2 kids, and they don't want to have kids. My son is gay, but my daughter is straight.
Does he have a boyfriend?
Yeah.
Is he nice, the boyfriend?
Yes, and she's been with this guy for 17 years when they got married.
Do they care about John Lennon?
No.
Do they ever ask you?
No, my son does.
When you're having dinner, let's say Thanksgiving. Because if you were my mother, it would be turkey, cranberry. Yo, Ma, what was John Lennon's dick like?
Oh my God.
That's what my question would be.
Oh my.
What a life, mate. Jesus Christ. All you can do really is live a good life, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you ever have a really bad day?
Yes. And I just go to sleep, and then, I turn on the telly, do what John used to do, turn on the telly and just go, and then just go and then go to sleep.
Just delete the day and wake up the next day.
Exactly. Because that's all you can do. What is it? You can't take that back. So you got to go forward, and that's what you do. So you try to make it a better day, the next one, or whatever it is that's been hounding you.
John Lennon, love is the answer. There's not enough of that from you.
The photos show where he was at.
But I'm pretty sure he meant that if you love each other, nothing else matters.
It's true. And then, so the whole idea is that but we're still human, no matter what we do. So we still have our flaws. But you got to pick yourself up.
Did you get my email saying the car's there when the car wasn't there?
Yeah, you see people getting upset over stupid.
We overrate life, May, is
Absolutely, we do. But again, we're human. We're not super beings. And we could only do what we do and make it work the way it's supposed to go. But nothing is guaranteed. Nothing. We only know that we're born and we die. Those are the guarantee. The guarantee is death. That's the end result, no matter what we do. But where and how long we live, that's a whole other story.
How do you want to die?
I don't know yet. Don't think about it, because if you think about it, then you start to dwell. Who wants to
complications
dwell?
with pneumonia. Surely it's the best for everyone.
No. I want to enjoy life. Don't bring me down.
Are you going to sing us a song?
No, you're going to sing the song.
Can I sing a song and take it seriously?
Hey, go for it.
Keep Moon.
Yes, he was in the house with us. He was kind of funny. I'd never really met him, and he was really lovely. He goes, May, when he moved in that day, and he goes, can I show you something? Do you need something? I said, what are you talking about? Because I was like the house mother. I was the youngest one of this group, but I was like the oldest one in this group. And I said, what is it? So he opens up and he takes the top drawer of the chest, drawers, and he goes, do you need anything? I'm looking at it. It's like all these pills that he had in there. And I said, no, it's okay. I'm fine.
The regret that I have for the era that I'm from.
I also get it that a lot of people that are younger people wish they had lived in the era.
This is to May Pang. Here we go. Is the guitar in tune? That's a big question. Here we go. We're going to tune this. Keep talking. Keep talking to each other. Yeah, take a quick break and we'll tune the guitar. Will you do harmonies on this, Bang Bang?
Oh, I'm not going to do it. I don't know this song. What are you talking
All right.
about? Where are you from? It's Dublin. Okay. I was doing a project, and I went over because they wanted me to come over. It was
Gabriel Byrne.
Yeah, that was in 1980. Because
What style? Jesus, when you were young.
it was because. So yeah, it was there, and then it was a fun project. I'll never forget. Barry Devlin said to me from Horselips, and he said, because he created this thing, and he said, "Can you find a black girl that could sing?" I said, "What?" He goes, "I need a black girl that we could do this." So it was great. Then Gabriel he hadn't even made his first. And then I also met Barry's sister, who was married to a poet. And I said, "Oh, a poet, Seamus Heaney." So I said, "Oh, that's interesting." And also I met a couple of guys, because the guy who was a part of the sponsor, he worked in advertising, who was sponsoring this documentary thing. And he goes, I want you to meet some of the members of this band that I'm working with. And
What do you remember about this, man?
Okay, so I'll tell you a story where he got this. So here it goes. I loved all that orchestral. Here it comes.
John.
And then we sing. There were four of us. And it meant nothing. Everybody's like trying to find what it meant. It meant nothing. Those words just came to me and it fit the song. But the funny part, a lot of people had come up to me after watching my documentary and realized that I was the singer in this.
My favorite tune involving you or your life is.
Right.
There's a UFO over New York. Was it a lie and you were just going with it or what?
No, I saw it with him. Because he said, "You got to come out here." And he's screaming at me and I'm going.
So you saw
This thing that was saying, you couldn't miss it. That's how big it was. It was like maybe the size of this.
Was it not just an airplane and you guys were microdosing
It's only
shrooms?
3 stories above my head. So I could see the outline.
So you can guarantee that there was UFOs
Oh,
flying over
absolutely.
New York?
Yeah. There's no two ways about it.
We know so little about humanity that we're just an experiment and our galaxy is limited and they're already surveilling us.
Well, I know, yeah. But it'd be stupid of us, really, to think that we are the only, quote, people, humans, whatever, in this universe.
yes, so they're watching us jokingly nearly.
I don't know what they're thinking, but for us to think that we're the only ones in this whole universe is stupid.
So you saw a UFO over New York?
3 stories, 2-3 stories over my head. You can't miss it. We're coming up to the anniversary. I just know. That's what happened. Makes me go back to thinking what the time we had, what it was like, just doing it, watching it. I just remember it. It's August 23rd, right?
Yeah.
And what's today? 22nd. So
Yeah.
tomorrow will be 50 years that we both saw this thing. And it was great. It was 9:30 at 9 o'clock at night. And we had come back from, yeah.
So you're both naked on the rooftop. You're
Well,
both playing with your
I was
after
putting on- I was
It sounds
trying to-
like you're just two out of your nut hippies.
I was in the other room trying to get dressed for the pizza guy who was delivering out pizza for dinner. And all I hear him was screaming, May. And then I said, oh, okay, I'm not paying attention. I'm not going out. And then I heard him a second time. And he says, now. And I went, oh, dropped the clothes, ran. I said, what do you? And I stopped. And I said, what the hell is that? He goes, you're seeing exactly what I'm seeing. And I'm staring at this thing and I'm going, and I'm screaming, it's a UFO. And I'm screaming. My neighbors don't come out because it's summer. In August, in back then, on a Friday, nobody's around. They're all gone on holiday. It's August. So it's like here, those days are gone,
Was he great fun to live with, though, around the clock?
Yeah, he was actually, yeah.
So morning, afternoon, and night, regardless of what's happening today, we're having fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? He'd say, what are we going to do today? And I said, how about if we go you want to see Manhattan? You want to see New York? He goes, yeah, what are we going to do? And I said, come with me. I took him on a bus ride through New York on a regular bus. So he goes, we're just going to get on a bus. And I said, yeah, you'll see now what I see and people going to work and you'll see what they're like. And he got on the bus with me. And it was in the wintertime of February.
John Lennon.
You had to see the people going on.
He never said about me at Mimi and all that.
A hard-nosed woman. I did meet her. I did go.
Did you?
I did come over after we had broken up, and I said, let me go and see her. So I went over to see her. And I could see she was one of those older women, you could see like the crack the whip type of person. But she was nice to me. I came home and I said, well, John, I finally met Mimi. He goes, what do you think? And, I said, she's a strong one. I said, yes, she was, but she was nice. He goes, really? I said, yep. You hear all these songs that you're doing, whatever we're doing. He's alive.
Yeah.
He's alive.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Stepped by and felt your fall. I got them knocking on my door. I thought I couldn't hear them anymore. A Swiss cave, such a pleasant place to be. But the boredom of lunacy. I wasn't nice to her, she wasn't nice to me. Mona Lisa's on Moore Street, and he's got HIV. Mona Lisa's on Moore Street, I gotta love the 90s. A planned thought, beginning, middle, end. She doesn't seem like a man's best friend. It's a sign they only get back what she lends. Fake voice and high-level therapy. We got a suicide by the sea. It's the makeup of our new society. Mona Lisa's on Moore Street, she won't stop winking at me. Mona Lisa's on Moore Street, and he's got HIV. Mona Lisa's on Moore Street. I gotta love the 90s. Mona Lisa, suicide by the sea. Mona Lisa, suicide by the sea.
It is. I like the tone.
Thank you very much for coming on the Michael Anthony Show. If we could briefly summarize it, just a quick bit of advice for just a little bit of life advice.
You know what? You got to do what's good for you. And I mean, again, it's that make yourself happy. You need to be happy. You need to enjoy life. You can't just, I know we go through everything, but you still got to enjoy. I enjoy life now more than, and I don't, that's why when you ask me about trolls, I don't
you
care.
regret the years where you didn't enjoy life?
I don't want to have regrets. You can't look backwards. You can't take those years back. You know what I mean? So you do what you have to do now and going forward.
Thank you for coming on the Michael Anthony Show. Thank you for coming here this afternoon.
Having fun.
MA Show, thank you.
I like that instead of what was he like, and then go the next question. I
I like
prefer.
randomness of it.
Yeah.
I find it very entertaining. I couldn't stop laughing at him.
It's been how many years, my boy?
Audio books, they're a bit shorter than
You
audio
still
books.
don't know my tears of joy. No need to go, just take it slow.
Podcast or something like that.
And have you heard the Michael Anthony Show? Makes me feel just fine. What's it help to see? Makes me see the light. What about those tears? Believe my eyes. How's it make you feel? Makes me feel alright.